I'm sure most of us have our favorite trees. Our streets are lined with them. As they age, there are many things that can happen. But when do we know that it's the end of our tree? I'm with Tracy Jackson. He is the chairman of the tree board for Clarksville. He is a certified arborist. He's a master gardener, and I could go on with all the things that he can do. But Tracy, there's nothing any more devastating to walk out the door and know that lightning with its force has just taken down partly or hit a tree. So we don't call the tree cutters first, do we?
No.
So tell us how to recognize symptoms.
Well, this tree we're standing in front of is a prime example of how to identify whether lightning has struck a large tree, and this one has done some considerable damage. If you look up in the tree, you can follow the places where the bark has been blown off the tree, and it goes all the way up to very near the tip of the highest branch up in the tree. The lightning struck that branch and came down the tree, and in the process blew the bark off, and it lost its charge as it got near the ground, as you can see. We have been watching this tree. This happened on about the 4th of July, and here it is near the end of July. And I have been watching this tree to be sure that it does not show signs of deterioration from the lightning strike. In the very top, we see one small limb that looks like it's dying, and I think that limb got struck, and that may die, but the rest of the tree seems to be standing or has absorbed this shock without really much serious damage.
If this is not a death sentence for this tree, what will this tree do to recover from this splitting?
Well, it will produce what we call wound wood where the damage has occurred. And that wound wood grows in this particular region of the tree between the bark and the interior wood. It'll start growing what is called wound wood and try to seal over this particular damage. Now, one thing I want to say is it does not help to try to put anything on the tree. That's absolutely no good for the tree. The tree recognizes those painted things as another invasion.
No tree coat.
That's right, no tree coating.
Okay, what about insects? Is there something systemic?
You can use a systemic insecticide, yes, by drench around the tree. The insects don't really like this kind of tree. They want something different.
So what I hear is, don't immediately think that tree is going to come down on your house.
No.
You've got to watch to see, as what you call flagging, the limbs that start to die off.
Yes. This tree took a lot more damage than the tree we just saw. And you can see that by the way the limbs are looking in this tree. Off to the right over here, you see the leaves look like they're dying, and those limbs did not actually get struck by lightning. The lightning struck a limb on the other side of this tree. I've looked at this earlier, and the limbs on that side are also dying. So this tree may not be viable in a short period of time.
Okay, so we have two examples. One will and one won't.
Probably won't, right.
There's more than one enemy to our old hardwood trees. This is an oak tree. Tracy, this is such a heartache because I've watched this tree for over 30 years. What has happened, and tell us how to recognize and know what to do when we see trees like this.
Yeah, there are several signs. This is the result of a tree that has been eaten away by fungal disease over the years, and this took at least 30 years, if not longer, to occur. And also insects. You see a lot of insect damage in here, and the tree, of course, just kind of falls apart. Now, some of the signs are, we'll see one later on, is they're called fruiting bodies that make a positive identification for the fact that there is fungal disease inside a limb that does not look like it's diseased necessarily, but with the fruiting bodies we know for sure that it is.
We just see the dying back effect of it.
And sometimes that does. Now, the tree lives according to the cambium layer, which is along the outside of the tree.
Well, look, I was just looking. This is so interesting because it looks like you could peel it back like some piece of cardboard or pressed wood. What exactly is this a result of the tree ring growth? What is this?
Yeah, those are this is a tree ring growth right here. This piece, this section right here grew in 1 year grew on the outside of the tree, and that was formed in the springtime and during the summer. And then the next year, another one formed on top of that. And so,
oh, wow,
so that's why we have rings in the trees. And we can see rings all through here.
Yes.
And those, each one of those rings and the thickness of it shows the amount that the tree grew in diameter during that particular year.
You can actually see whether it grew with great success or if it had to overcome stress.
Right. This lighter wood right here was wood that was the previous year's wood. And this very thin layer right in here is the cambium layer that is covered by bark. Mm-hmm. Now, this one doesn't look very thick because it didn't grow much this year. This tree was really close to dying, and you'll probably see the rings are fairly close together. They're not. This one's about a 32nd of an inch, but that's where the tree sends all of its nutrients from the roots up to the leaves through this particular layer right here, all around the tree, and it is the growing part of the trunk of the tree. A German has invented a machine that uses a thin piece of wire, believe it or not, that is fed into the tree. And this is a big machine that you put this coil of wire back here, and it forces its way through here. And as it's doing that, it records the tension that is on the wire, the resistance that the tree is giving it, and everywhere there's a ring, there's a little dip in the resistance. And so we can count the rings as this wire goes through the tree and determine after a while that there's no more disturbance, and so we know we're inside a hollow tree. This tree became unsafe because of all the rot near the ground. This part that's on the truck now was up higher in the tree, and you'll see in the middle, very little rot is showing in the middle of the tree. But outside of that is a lot of this very heavy wood. And if you come over here to this other piece, this piece was actually below the one we saw on the truck, and it shows more of the damage that we saw down near when we were down the hill. This rot came up from the ground and up into the tree from below and left the upper part of the tree fairly healthy. And yet all that heavy wood that was left up there then helped bring the tree down. This tree would probably have fallen whether we had wind or not. And we did have a lot of wind on the 4th of July, and that just happened to be the day that it came down.
And what a beautiful example of the red oak, that bark and the internal part of this. Where do we go from here?
This tree is probably not going to make it much longer because it lost its main trunk. You see, it broke away, and the break was caused by wind, but it was damaged because it had interior rot. And you can see the rot that's there. It's been there for some years. And to the left, you see the break that broke off, and it was a great big main trunk of the tree, and it snapped and fell to the ground. Now, the remaining limbs are not that strong without the main limb in there, and that's one of the problems with the breakage on maple trees. They're just not strong enough when they get large like this to last much longer without some kind of help. There's one way to do that, and that is to get inside the tree and put some cabling between the upper limbs and try to hold them in place in the wind. But when these trees get this large, it's best to start replanting.
Well, and I think that's the thing that we do. We look into the future and plant those saplings and young trees.
And you have some examples here of trees that have probably lived about as long as they're going to, but they still are beautiful, and as long as they're not dangerous to somebody, we can still leave them. And,
their memory lives on, doesn't it?
Yes, and it does.
Thank you. If you like gardening, you'll want to subscribe to this channel. We showcase gardeners, plants, and the joy that growing can bring.